Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com, and welcome to my second Commander deck tech. In today's video I'll show you how to get a turn 1 kill in Commander with Purphoros Bronze Blooded. But before that, if you haven't watched my first Commander deck tech where I talk about my Sultai Hydra tribal deck with Zahara the Exemplary, head over to CyclesGaming.com for the video and the article. And while you're there, check out my mini modern brews and my science fiction novel, The Podkind, a post-apocalyptic story about a generation born to explore space in search of a new home. But let's get to the aforementioned turn 1 kill. Purphoros the Bronze Blooded is the red god. He costs 5 mana and has both a static and an activated ability. We need both to execute our turn 1 kill. His static ability, other creatures we control have haste. His activated ability, for 2 and a red, we may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from our hand onto the battlefield. We have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So how do we kill an opponent on turn 1? Well, you may have guessed one of our combo pieces. Blightsteel Colossus. The rest? Well, be forewarned, this is not a cheap group of cards. First, we need a basic mountain. Okay, well that one's cheap. Next, Jeweled Lotus. After that, Mana Crypt. And then a Mana Vault. And then the Blightsteel Colossus. And of course, we need our commander. So how do we execute this beautiful and expensive plan? First we play Mana Crypt and tap it to play Mana Vault. We now have 4 mana available. We then play our mountain and our Jeweled Lotus. We sacrifice the Jeweled Lotus and we spend 2 of our floating colorless mana to cast Purphoros Bronze Blooded. Then we tap our mountain and spend the remaining 2 colorless mana to cheat in Blightsteel Colossus and hope our opponent doesn't have a Solitude. Of course, the odds these 5 cards are in our opening hand aren't great, and it'll cost you about $400 to have the chance. But hey, turn 1 wins aren't cheap. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk briefly about the deck. It's one of my favorites, in large part because, you guessed it, we get to play really big dragons. We're looking to take advantage of Purphoros' abilities early and late by cheating in big fatties with things like ETB triggers, like Bogard and Hellkite, and Inferno Titan, or things with attack triggers like Utvara Hellkite and Cityscape Leveler, or with combat damage triggers like Hellkite Tyrant and Steel Hellkite, and things with death triggers like Ancient Stone Idol and Triplicate Titan. But if we were only playing Purphoros fairly, the deck would be fun for a minute, but would likely run out of action and leave us top decking. So how can we abuse Purphoros? Well, we have ways to end the turn before his sacrifice trigger hits the stack. We have ways to copy the creatures we cheat into play to keep them around. We have ways to avoid the trigger. We have ways to ignore the trigger. And we have ways to bring the fatties back from the graveyard. Let's just hope our opponent doesn't stick a blind obedience, though we do have some answers for that as well. And since we don't actually have to cast our threats to win, this deck may just be the best home for Possibility Storm. To see the rest of the deck and a complete write-up of the deck's sweet synergies, awesome gameplay, and alternative win conditions, check out the full article on CyclesGaming.com. So what do you think? Would you want to knock an opponent out of the game on turn 1 if you could? Are there any other turn 1 wins that you know of? Let me know in the comments, and click that subscribe button if you enjoy the content. Everybody counts. Thanks for watching. For CyclesGaming.com, I'm Johnny Cycles. I'll catch y'all on the next one.